I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do a roll call, please.
Councilmember Klur. Here. Councilmember Collings. Councilmember Stackflet.
Here.
Councilmember Globman.
Here.
Mayor Redmond.
Here. All right, seeing no special presentations or announcements, we'll move into public comment. If the two people in the audience would like to say anything for 3 minutes not on the agenda, and they are smiling as no, so we will close public comment and kick it off with Todd on council and staff comments.
Yeah, okay. So I've got some updates about the Surplus Land Act. Again, we're in that 60-day period where, we're taking solicitations for those that want to develop affordable housing at the landing. And then, if anybody responds, we've got 90 days to negotiate with them in good faith, and hopefully we come up with some plan. Been talking to a group called Zen Development. They haven't said for sure that they are going to apply, but we've spent a lot of time together. They've got a proposal for 60 units on a particular parcel at the north end. We'll see if they come through. Talking to K2, Daniel Knott and I had a conversation today actually about whether they're going to propose. They were kind of waiting, in hoping that they didn't put in, they didn't want to put in an affordable housing proposal on the hope that nobody else did. And therefore, if they were going to do some affordable housing, it would be part of a master planning project for the entire site. And so we're keeping close contact. They want to see if Zen is going to, put in a proposal, and now they're working up something so they can get that in, just to get that placeholder. Their whole model is that they make development work by using affordable housing, grants, loans, et cetera, and also applying for a lot of transportation grant money and use some of the excess, and they're allowed on both, to help build out that infrastructure. And so they're still on. They want to develop the entire site. Their preference is to see a master plan done, where we know what the zoning is, but to work through the process where we go to the community, we come up with a site plan with a lot of detail in terms of elevation, the compaction issues, those things that are related to the land use covenant, where you can build residential, where you can't, community desirability, what's the programming, and in taking in community input. So the project they get is then you take that master plan, it's approved by the Planning Commission, then approved by Council. So even if K2 didn't come through, for them, it makes it much easier to walk in and just do that, right? And allows them to plan. And it's early yet, but just had a wild hair. We have remaining brownfield cleanup money. And, we're going to meet, a group of us are going to meet on Friday, SEDC and, one of our, our consultant team, and seeing, and they believe it's a use that's compatible with the remaining grant, which is about $270,000. The idea that, on the remaining brownfield grant, that we can do the entire master plan and get this ready and get it approved would be a huge win. So I'll know more on Friday. Your favorite, the Library Expansion Committee. We've disbanded it, but Noel and Tam have come back. They've been able to, figure out how to move the addition and it took them a couple more days. They're still on track to submit 100%, design drawings on Friday. But they would still like to pull a meeting together with the usual suspects before the whole package is sent over between August 18th and 22nd. We can say, we have enough input that we want to move forward, and as opposed to, allowing another bite at the apple, but that's where they are right now.
That'll be the last library expansion committee meeting? After 3 years?
I thought the last library expansion committee meeting was the last one.
Don't hold your breath.
We'll make that the last one, the one that you're talking about. In
Yeah.
August. And they have 100%?
Friday.
This Friday?
This Friday.
Friday, so we'll have one more meeting to
They want to then, with the 100,
Or is LPAC and or friends looking like?
no, not at all. And that's the part that I'm wondering if we need.
We're not,
We don't add too much at
we
this
don't
point.
contradict the designers very much at all.
I don't know if we need
Two or
to.
three people that do.
I don't know if we need to meet again, because we've had so much input. Does it open it up again for another delay, right?
Yeah.
And they were all happy at the last meeting. The few that usually object, everyone was in agreement, so, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, I mean, I can say go ahead, think so? All right, okay. And that's it.
Any other department heads? Counselors? Nothing to add? All right. Moving on to committee updates. Anything to report for DEAC or beautification?
We've got our DEAC meeting on Wednesday morning at 8 a.m.
This Wednesday at 8?
Yeah.
Oh, we're already in a meeting. Never mind. Oh, it is 9? I thought we made it for 8. The,
Wednesday, you guys have your master fee.
Yeah, is that at 8 o'clock still?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I'll probably stop in and make sure I answer all their questions and then come up.
To the chair.
Please.
I did attend something. I went to the Community Foundation of the North State, hosted like a little meet and greet here in Mount Shasta maybe a week ago. And they made an announcement that they're establishing a Siskiyou County only fund. And they have some seed money, and they're going to be granting $25,000 to nonprofits within Siskiyou County for this coming year, and they wanted me to announce it, and also they're willing to come and speak to the council in more detail if we would like them to. But we're going to have more of their presence up here. They're in Siskiyou, Shasta, and Tehama counties.
All right, moving on to consent agenda. The city manager recommends approval of the following consent agenda items. All resolutions and ordinances on this agenda or added hereto shall be introduced or adopted as applicable by title only, and the full reading thereof is hereby waived. A, approval of minutes, July 14, 2025, regular meeting. B, approval of disbursements, accounts payable, July 16th of 2025 and July 23rd of 25. Total gross payroll and taxes for the period ending June 26th of 25. C, monthly investment report. D, parking district pass, second reading. E, the property tax lien resolution, and F, a clerical change to CCR 23-05, Exhibit A. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve consent agenda items A through F by title only.
Second.
A second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? All right. Moving on to item number 8, appointment of the city treasurer. Todd, you have the floor.
Okay, so our city treasurer, our elected city treasurer, Shalani Hansko, in our finance department is resigning in August and moving out of the area, which means we're going to have a vacancy. We have the choice of going out to a full election, or I think the easiest way is we're allowed within 60 days of her resigning and we can do that now, is we can appoint somebody to fill out the rest of that term, and Melissa Dodd has volunteered to take on that role. You know, the only duty that she can't take on is countersigning checks, but that's, you know, a small price to pay for getting somebody in this role that has a lot of finance experience, so.
Yeah, there's plenty of us that can sign checks still.
Right on.
Okay, any questions about this? All right, we'll open it up to public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Do we got a motion? Go ahead.
Motion to appoint Melissa Dodd, the city's finance director, to the position of city treasurer for the remainder of the current term.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None? Okay, congratulations, Melissa. More work.
Do we need to swear her in, or how does that work?
Oh, good question, yeah. Can that happen at City
Mike,
Hall, or when does that happen?
Happened when it actually, when
Yeah, so we might have to get
Let me,
John Kennedy in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
yeah,
So would that be just the next meeting then, or?
let me talk to John. I'm assuming you guys are right. So let's see about getting John Kennedy into the next meeting, but I'll check with John. I would assume so.
Okay, good point, thank you. So, all right, moving down to number 9, tiny homes on wheels ordinance. And Todd, I'm assuming you have this since Jeff is gone?
Sure. Okay, we've all received a lot of comments on this project. It is, definition of a tiny home. There's a lot. It's under up to 400 square feet, and there are design parameters that are listed under the objective design standards. I wanted to address a couple comments that we received that we didn't provide proper notice, that we didn't, publicly notice this 10 days in advance. We did. We have the receipt from the paper. The other argument is that we also didn't meet noticing, as some members of the community are, according to the commenter, are supposed to receive packets 10 days ahead of time and are on a list. That, as far as I know, hasn't been the practice. I spoke to the city attorney on it. He said, we're going to move forward on this. If anybody has any questions about this noticing, they can call him. And there was same commenter made a point in the packet. It states that this project is not exempt from CEQA. It is. It is a project where the density, the zoning code, and the intensity of use hasn't changed, and we're not breaking ground on it. So therefore, it is not a project. Okay, so let that out of the way. Back in November of last year, council directed staff to come up with a tiny home ordinance, and the purpose is to come at the affordable housing issue from a different angle. Workforce housing is the hardest piece to build. ADUs is one way to tackle it, and so are tiny homes. So there have been a lot of discussions, and what went before the Planning Commission is these tiny home villages with anywhere between 9 tiny homes or less. I believe it's between 3 and 9. There are a lot of requirements on how they're sited. They're not allowed to be moved more than once a year unless there's an emergency and they need to have some kind of certification or renewal that they have to have. But the idea is that it is permanent housing, and it's a way that people can build some equity and then move on to the next purchase. And so the Planning Commission approved the ordinance And so we're bringing it in front of council. It would be, the design of these would be subject to the objective zoning standards and, the ultimate regulatory authority on, on these types of villages would be the Planning Commission.
Questions?
So the Planning Commission has passed this already, or what's being seen before us, is that correct?
It is. Oh, and one more thing. The zones that these are allowed in are R2, R3, C1, and C2.
Any other questions?
Just because this is, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Just because this is something that I've gotten a lot from community members in the past 72 hours or so. How did the Planning Commission arrive at the number? Or the allowed number, sorry.
I can't answer that coherently. I wasn't part of those discussions.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's where I need Jeff here for that. All right, any other questions? All right, we'll open up to public comment.
Yes.
Okay. Public hearing.
Okay.
Aloha, I'm Afa here in Shasta. And that is a yeah movement, a yeah campaign. A little thing, you remember in EIR when we had these little things that was up on little dashboards? Well, that's kind of the same idea. It stands for Yes to Expedite Affordable Housing. And there's been a lot of comment, a lot of people, and we were kind of hoping, we were there with Planning Commission, did the whole thing, and it was awesome, great people. And we got a lot of response. I think it was like a few thousand views and a lot of comments. A lot of people want to come and speak. Might take a month to organize people, but definitely got you back on affordable housing. And that whole staffing that's going on with the meeting, special meeting before this. Staffing is an effect of affordable housing. There's a cause and effect. There's a staffing issue because there's not an affordable housing. If we have affordable housing, you have more volunteers. You have more staffing, you have more labor force, you have more commercial buildings that want to come in because we have the employees to staff it. We have more property taxes, maybe less sales tax, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So awesome that the landing is pushing, awesome that an apartment might be thinking, awesome that 250K might go to, or some master plan to get approved through the council, so make somebody else easier. Awesome. And so if you see these little signs, or if you want to be cool enough to cut them in half, because we haven't gotten there yet, I just came up. I work at SW and Weed and the concrete plant up there. Before that, I did logging out over here. Been around for a little while, but yeah, we need to cut it in half and then put it on the vehicles. But a lot of excitement for it, so thank you.
Happy to help, thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Maria, also Mount Shasta. Just want to first say thank you. I'm really excited that you guys are taking on this issue. I can tell everybody here understands the importance of this topic, especially. I think we need to be, real and say there's a housing crisis in this area. I showed up in this area about 6 years ago as a single mom with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I didn't have a lot of money, just recently divorced, and we were living in a hotel for a while because there's no place. And I can tell you I'm not the only one. I've seen and heard some really, really scary stories. People end up in really bad and dangerous situations sometimes because they're desperate and they don't have options. So we have an opportunity, and I'm glad you guys are really addressing things to think creatively and, you know, go outside the box a little bit, maybe do some things that are maybe a little novel, maybe not what everybody would choose, but anything at this point that we can use to kind of open the door to bringing more affordable options to local families is a huge win. And it's going to create potential not just for those individual families, but for the whole community, for employment options, for the economy to grow, and people to actually be able to reach their full potential. That, you know, when people are stressed and they're working 3 jobs or they're scrambling all the time, they can't bring their best and actually bring their talent to the community. So I'm excited that this is becoming a thing. I made the little signs, so I'd be proud to see them in anybody's windows or shop windows or whatever. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
My kids lost the scissors though, so I gotta.
Feel free to bring more of these to my speakeasy. We can hand them out to the customers. There'll be a lot of them on board with this. So.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll close public comment, bring it back. Do we have a motion?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
I got a question, sorry, I should have asked this earlier. I know, so, again, talking to people for the past little while since this came out, one of the concerns is, people moving in and out a bunch. And I understand that it's a 30-day, this is not short-term rental, long-term, and I get that long-term is defined as anything over 30 days. And I'm wondering if there's a way to, if we can make it so that something that's defined as a village like this, or maybe more than a certain amount of units per thing, make that so that the rental is more like a 6-month minimum or something like that instead of 30 days, so we don't end up with a village of like 5 pseudo short-term rental units next door to somebody. And I think that something like that, since the goal of this is to facilitate long-term housing, affordable housing for people in general, I'm wondering if there's a way that we can make anything like that just to alleviate some of the concerns that I think people have with traffic in and out a lot.
If that's what council desires, you know, we'd have to take a look at the issue to make sure that we're, you know, not getting crosswise.
So I think they tried, I'm looking at a section here, I think they tried to address that. So long-term housing only shall not be rented for periods of less than 30 days in duration. Is that not long enough for you?
No, I think it will work, but the comments I'm getting from people is that they're worried that people are going to be moving in and out every 30 days.
More of an Airbnb kind of setup.
Okay, we already have a limit on Airbnbs.
Right.
55, are they sold out?
Yes.
Well, it's up to us, make sure that doesn't increase, and is the management company we hired to monitor that, making sure we don't have black market Airbnbs operating?
I think they do a pretty good job.
Okay, you're sure about that? Because the prior one was not good.
No, I do.
Okay.
To the chair. I think there might be a legality issue with 30 days because of the month-to-month option in California. I'm not positive on that, but I think that the intent is to have long-term rentals and not rotate it out every 30 days.
You're suggesting an amendment then?
No,
Oh.
I'm saying I think it says longer than 30 days because I believe that.
No less.
No less, because I believe that's a California housing legality.
Month to month
Yeah.
for long-term rentals, yeah.
And I think the point behind this is to have long-term housing. I totally agree with that. It's just some of the concern that I've been getting from people is that they think it's going to be like every 30 days. I don't actually think that's likely to. I don't think that's going to
I
happen.
think
but
they think that there's going to be black market Airbnb.
Perhaps, yeah.
That's what they think is going to happen. We hopefully have it. It's all done online.
Yeah, I was going to say, go online and find all that. So.
You know, for a little bit of the deliberations, you know, if there was a group that wanted to form one of these, I mean, there's nothing that's saying that if it's a private concern, that the people that are part of one of these villages, everybody has to be an owner, right? One of the things, one member of the Planning Commission suggested that the only way he wanted to see this move forward is if these clusters or villages we're owned by an entity. And, you know, my personal concern, and I think it's the concern that Jeff raised, is then we have venture capitalists buying this stuff, getting people in there, renting them, and then jacking up the rates, and they have total control over the residents. And the idea here, especially if they're purchases, again, is to get that first start. You purchase it, you put it on a pad, you pay for that pad, and you know, you live it in a bit, and then, you know, it hopefully appreciates in value. You sell it, and now you've got a little collateral for the next thing. But this, you know, is it perfect? I don't know, but I think this does its best to get us most of the way there.
So, I'll read it in a second. So one major obstructionist in our city is going to sue us if we don't do a CEQA. A initial CEQA study for the code itself. So, does anybody know if he does make a motion in court he'd be making a motion to block this from being enacted, right? So I just want to make sure everyone understands that this person may hold this up if that's the way it works.
Yeah. You know, I managed to reach Jeff Mitchum today and spoke to John Kenny. This is not a project that requires CEQA. However, you can sue over anything. And there's not much you can do when, you know, people sue to tie up a project, even if they know they're going to lose, hoping, you know, that it fails. But in this case, we don't have people investing in this now. If someone did sue, the idea is to see this all the way through and prevail, and then, you know, nobody's lost any carrying costs, and then we do it.
Well, what I'm getting at is timing. If he sues, which he probably will, is the code in suspension, meaning that no one can follow up and actually start a project? Because that's how it seems to me.
If a lawsuit was filed and the court said,
Well, I think it'll be rejected locally, but he'll appeal.
but I think the courts it would be up to the courts to say, until this is a settled matter, this is not something that can move forward. And that's a possibility. I don't see this taking.
There are people who are probably pretty excited about this, but this one individual has a way of basically bursting bubbles, so I just want them to be mentally prepared for that.
The amount he sues, he's the Donald Trump of
That's
Fiscal
all. I
County.
hate to be a downer on this, but you need to be mentally prepared for,
No, it's
the
same
brakes
guy
being
that jammed
put
up
on.
the school, so.
yeah, that guy. All right, so without further ado, I will move to approve the first reading of CCO-25- a number to be determined, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta, amending the Mount Shasta Municipal Code, adding Chapter 18.18, tiny homes on wheels by title only.
Second.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None? All right, moving on. Number 10, Senate Bill 346, letter of support. Todd, do you have the floor on that?
So, this is a letter of support for SB 346. What it addresses are what they define as facilitators. Facilitators are the platforms on which short-term rentals can be rented from. You know, whether that's Airbnb or, you know, some of these other smaller things, or like a concern that you go in and they've got a list of, you know, it's, if you pay their fee, they're going to find you a short-term rental. And right now, you know, we've got good compliance up here, but this is for other areas that don't, is that under this proposed regulation, these platforms are required to reveal not only address information, APNs, and compliance information, and the ability to audit these actual individual short-term rentals, and with those addresses, with those APNs, if they need to cite individuals who own these, and and the ability to reach the owner and write them if need be. And right now, I don't know if we're facing this up here, but other locales, they're not able to access that information. They're blocked by the platform. So it's a letter of support, to get this thing passed.
All right, thank you. Any questions on this? Good.
So I'm reading the text of SB 346 here, or summary of it, and so this authorizes a local agency, us, the city, to go after, like you said, the facilitators. So in essence, does this have the city like suing Airbnb, or are these large? I mean,
I think from my understanding, the larger platforms, they're going to be compliant. It's in their best interest. It's smaller platforms, and it is the type of mom and pop organization where you pay or you're seeking a short-term rental, and then they'll show you it and put you in it, but then they're not required to provide that information. And when that mom and pop concern, pays the taxes or doesn't, and we have no idea exactly what address, who the owners are they compliant, that kind of thing.
One other question. So does this create a requirement for the facilitator to report it, or does it allow the agency to request the information from the facilitator?
Allows.
It allows, okay.
Any other questions? All right. Public comment? All right. All right. All right. Seeing no public comment, I'll bring it back. All right. Any more discussion, or do we have a motion?
I mean, it seems to me like it just gives us a little bit more transparency and control over our local rental market. I don't see any.
Yeah, we were just asking about with, the tiny homes that
Right.
way, so. Okay.
All right, so I'll move to approve an opposition letter regarding no, that's
Support
the
letter.
next one,
The
sorry.
wrong one.
Pardon me, folks. Scroll down.
Let's have that here for you.
All right, so I'm going to move to approve a letter supporting SB 346 under consideration by the state legislature.
Second.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None? All right. And now we move into the opposition of
Yes.
Senate Bill 445. And Todd?
Senate Bill 445, the intent is to streamline the permitting process for the light rail. And it requires local jurisdictions in which light rail passes through for them to, review and approve aspects of the project within their jurisdiction quickly, very quickly. It also takes away a level of local control and input on what's happening. The concern with this is it addresses this issue with, any statewide transportation project. And so what we don't know, and the concern is that they haven't defined how other projects that are going to be funded by the state, how that affects local jurisdictions. Are we going to have enough people to review this in time? Is it going to circumvent local control? Is it going to, circumvent the ability to provide input on the project, and will they then bypass the city if an additional environmental review is needed on a whole host of things. And then also then, when we're talking about state priority projects and we're applying for STIP funds, if it's a priority for them, it's now our priority as opposed to the things that we put in, pitch for at the local transportation commission, get on that 200% list and let it be whittled down to 100%, and we're able to lobby for that. So we think it needs, better definitions for the types of projects and what happens in smaller local communities.
Any questions?
That's a general question. I understand that this is going to affect things for decades moving forward, years moving forward, all that. But just in the short term, are you aware of any projects that would impact us here in Mount Shasta or even in Siskiyou County, just in general?
Not that I know of.
Just curious.
Okay. All right, we'll open it up to public comment. Seeing none, we'll close it up. All right, any more comment, or do we have a motion?
All right, so I'll move to approve an opposition letter regarding SB 445 under consideration by the state legislature.
Second.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None? All right. Moving on to number 12, vacancies and recruitments, and we are here to receive a presentation from Melissa.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. There's a new government code in California that requires a public hearing on an annual basis to review our vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts. This was passed last year and took an effect in January. So presenting a report of our current hiring process, which is attached, as well as a listing of our vacancies since January. Jody and I, our HR manager, took a training. This is new information. This was a brief report that we put together based on the training that we attended. And I did offer to Heather, our union organizer, to I sent this information to her and asked if she had any public input that she wanted to provide, and I did not hear back from her. That was a requirement of the government code. So as you can see, we have had a few vacancies. I don't think any of them are due to our processes. It does say that if there are issues identified with our policies, procedures, or activities, that we could address them in this meeting as a part of the public hearing. I think at this point our vacancies are due to budget constraints. So happy to try to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll open it up to public comment. All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. All right, any comments, or do we have a motion?
There's no.
No, there's no motion, okay. No motion, all right.
In the future, this will come with the budget.
Okay, gotcha, okay. Sorry, I was used to saying the motion. We're cruising, all right, so moving on to number 13, combining and closing of funds with the budget, and Melissa, you have the floor again.
So, thank you. This is outcome of our last budget, our Finance and Audit Committee meeting. As you know, I've been working to try to combine as much as possible or close if possible. Our funds, our accounting system can do much of the accounting in separate funds using account numbers rather than funds. Talked with our auditor as well. Currently, we have in our enterprise funds, we have 2 separate funds for each one. They're combined at the end of the year for the annual financial report. So I would like to just combine them in our accounting system. That would be Fund 31.
So that That's the operating fund versus the.
Improvement fund.
Yeah. How did we do that for somebody?
It is not a requirement to be done that way. So I would like to combine them, and I can keep things separate in account numbers. So that would impact our drainage fund, our water fund, and our wastewater fund, and I included the totals there. I would just do transfers and make them one fund. If I could do that at the end of we're at the end of the fiscal year, 24, 25, and then going forward, it'll just be one fund. As part of our review, we looked at the solid waste fund. That is a fund that we can get rid of now. We were keeping that fund because we were doing the billing for waste management. So an update quickly on that. They have done their first billing. We've gotten quite a few calls. The responses have been that they're not very responsive. But I think it'll get worked through. And so going forward, we will just be receiving the franchise fee. The franchise fee is about $50,000 a year. And this year it was $52,372.63. In the past, that franchise fee had been being kept separate in the improvement fund. Talked to the auditor a couple months ago about that, and it was his idea that would go to general fund typically. And so I'm recommending that for this year's franchise fee for 24-25, that we do move that into general fund. Yes, that was his recommendation.
There's no legal obligation to keep those funds separate. Solid waste improvements.
That would.
Management is handling everything.
That's right.
Question on that, were there previous franchise fees that should be transferred over to the general fund that might be laying in fund balance in one of the enterprise funds?
Yeah, so as you can see here in the solid waste improvement fund, there's about $185,000. Those are prior year franchise fees that were set aside in that improvement fund. So the recommendation would be, based on the discussion we had at the Audit and Finance Committee, would be to move them to general fund. We do have an issue in our drainage fund. We run negative cash in our drainage fund. We don't collect as much as we spend. So the recommendation from the committee was to keep as a committed fund balance roughly 3 years of the franchise fee currently in Fund 36 in the improvement fund as basically a set aside to offset the drainage losses that we have currently. Right now, as you can see in the drainage fund, we have negative cash of about $80,000. So I would be bringing forward to the committee in a future meeting request on how to cover that negative balance. But at this time, what the recommendation of the committee is to move the amount of $157,000 roughly from the Fund 36 Wastewater Improvement Fund to General Fund as a committed balance.
And just,
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. I'm sorry, yes, I misspoke there.
and just a designation between the term committed versus reserved fund balance. A committed fund balance is something that the council decides on, and we can change our minds later with a vote. It's not saying that it's permanently reserved for a function. It's just that we are setting that aside for a particular reason that can change.
And then the balance of that fund would be roughly $71,000. And I'm saying roughly because at year end, when entries are made, these numbers might change a little bit. They won't change significantly, but I'm going through that process right now. And so then the balance of around $71,000, the recommendation was to move that over to general fund to basically offset the losses we're going to be incurring this fiscal year to work towards getting us back to that 15% fund balance target. So that is the solid waste fund. Again, then I would close those funds, and everything would just move through general fund going forward. And then the last item, I hope, sorry, this is kind of long. So we currently have a negative fund balance in our CDBG fund. It is from prior years. All of our CDBG grants are closed out except for senior snow removal right now. And so I have balanced that, been working with Great Northern, and they've been really good about getting the fund requests done quickly. So we need to cover that negative balance of $4,727.35. And so I would recommend you doing that out of the Program Income Fund 61. Fund 61 is currently made up of, we have loans through the HCD program, and annually, if we don't collect more than $35,000, we're allowed to defederalize, they call it, those funds. And talking to Charlie, most agencies use those funds in their general fund. So they, rather than book them in a separate kind of holding fund like we've been doing, they move those at the end of the year to general fund to offset expenses. And so that would be the recommendation, would be to move the current year's estimated $5,848 to general fund. It will be actually that should be the solid number because we're done collecting for the year. So if you have any other questions on that, I don't know how that motion is going to read. I'm sorry. Maybe I should have broken them out.
John could put something together, don't worry. Any questions?
Oh, yeah, you can go first.
No, I don't.
Could you just explain to me and the public what forgive negative cash means?
So, and of course, Tesla can probably explain this a little, but as well. So my understanding is that we either have to forgive negative cash that is in funds by using general funds, and you're allowed to do that as a city council. General funds can be used for the purpose that you allocate them for. If you didn't want to forgive the funds, forgive the fund for having a negative cash balance, what we would need to do is set up basically a loan to that fund with terms of repayment. So those are the options that I talked to Charlie about. That hasn't, as far as I understand, that has not been brought forward to you guys in past years. It was done via a transfer and then reversed, so the negative amount was never really getting resolved.
So basically, at the end of a fiscal year, when the audit shows each fund, if there's a negative cash, like Melissa was saying, you can either transfer the money in from another fund to cover it to make it zero, or you can set up a loan called a due to, due from.
Sorry, what?
Due to,
Oh,
and then
due
the
to,
other
sorry,
side is a
okay.
due from, so it's a loan in and out, basically, but you have.
That's what we used to do.
Yeah, sort of, except that you have to set up like real interest rate terms, and it's treated like a real loan between the funds. However, with the transfers, the way that it was being done in the past, if I'm understanding correctly, is basically it's saying, I'm going to give you $10,000 to cover the negative cash, but then on 7/1, it was just reversed, so that fund never kept the cash, which would resolve the issue. So every year so it's like a transfer to show on the audit statements, but they weren't holding the cash to maintain it the next day. Back to negative. Is that?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, that's, the decision here would be to cover the CDBG negative of 4,727 with program income, of which we currently have 8,500. And then that will be done. That we won't have negative cash in there anymore. That fund should always be zero at the end of the year. It should never have a revenue or an expense.
Yeah, you guys done? No more questions? Okay. We'll open it up to public comment again. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Bring it back. You guys ready? Yeah.
It's going to be a little long-winded. I'll move to approve the combining of enterprise funds 30 and 31, 40 and 41, 45 and 47. In addition, I'll move to terminate solid waste funds 35 and 36 in the process, transferring funds, remaining funds to the general fund or to cover shortages in the drainage fund as the years go by. And lastly, I'll move to approve the Fund 61 transfer to cover negative cash in our CDBG fund. Best I can do at this point.
Do we have a second to all that?
Second, and I just want to add that I think the important part to note in the minutes is the committed fund balance of $157,117.89.
So that would be worded as Fund 61 funds would cover the negative cash in the CDBG fund and the remaining funds of 157.
Well, the remaining, that came out of the garbage fund.
Oh, yeah, so you're going back.
I'm going
Okay,
back.
So I was okay with 61, okay. So restating the section on the solid waste funds 35 and 36 being terminated and portions of the fund being committed to covering drainage fund shortages over the years, future years, and the remaining funds from those two funds being transferred to the general fund.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, so that might be the longest motion I've ever heard in my 7 years on council.
I once read a whole thing.
That is one of the longest motions I've ever heard. So, all right, we got that down, Rachel? We're good?
Rachel, you okay?
Yeah.
There's three parts to that, and the middle part
Yeah, exactly.
is now
yes.
on second, so the solid waste one is the redo.
Okay, so we got a second on that. Do we have, sorry, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. Okay. Good job, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving on to number 14, the PLHA transfer to general fund. And Todd, you have the floor to explain this.
Okay. The city, on behalf of Danco, was awarded $5 million in permanent local, from the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program. And it is to be administered by the city as a very low-interest loan on behalf of Seeing Mountain Townhomes come to fruition. They meet their requirements to build construction on the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The money is released to them, and then they're on the hook to make payments back to the city over 55 years. The part of these funds, $250,000 of it, comes to the city in administrative fees, not only to get them through, you know, the approval of this process, all the pre-work, CEQA, and, you know, getting it to the planning commission, city council, whatever, but also it's for the administration of the loan over time. And so at the last audit committee, I believe it was June 7th, the recommendation from the members of that committee and Melissa's as well was to take that $250,000 and pull it into the general fund to both offset expenditures and to help us, you know, get our reserve to something a little bit more healthy. And so we're bringing this formally to council for that purpose, to accept it.
Questions? Pretty straightforward. Okay. We'll open up to public comment again. There we go.
Algebra 1 math. But it sounded like we want to take 250,000 of a $5 million thing for 55 years of maintenance. Right? 55 years of administrative, ongoing.
Yeah, it's part of the state program under housing and community development that a certain percentage of over a certain amount automatically, you know, when they make that decision, comes to the city for those administrative fees.
That's something I got to learn. So I don't know it all, but my math just shows me it's like $4,500 a year if you divide 55 years by $250,000, which is like $350 a month, which is like $10 a day or something. just an interesting point. I don't know if I'm reading that right. I probably don't know a lot about it, but I get the immediate influx of cash for general fund for a lot of reasons. So, but yeah, okay. Thanks.
Seeing no more public comment, we'll close it, bring it back to council. Any other questions or discussion? Do we have a motion then?
Okay, so I'm going to move to approve account that the permanent local housing allocation award of $250,000 in administrative fees be deposited in the city general fund.
Second.
Yeah, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None? All right. All right, moving on to outside council reports. Any outside meetings from anybody? Bueller? None? All right. Moving on to future agenda items, appearing on the agenda within 60 to 90 days. Master fee schedule review, and B, a public hearing, a revocation of business license. Anything people want to add?
Taken care of?
Unless we got another one?
Yeah, that can come off. That's,
Oh, that is, okay.
you know,
I thought we had another one to deal with, okay.
we might want to actually take it off or leave it on for the moment. Their next payment is due by the end of the week.
So we got to make sure that they're still following
And, you
through
know,
with the new ownership.
it's a strange thing in that they get behind, they're assessed a lot of fines. You know, we file a case, and then they settle, they pay what they owe, all the fines, and they have to pay for attorney's fees, and this has happened twice. It just, you know, when they can't sell this place until they're current. So I'm hoping,
Has anybody sent them a letter on that or anything? Explained it to them?
so we're hoping that that the third time's a charm because we've done this twice.
Okay.
Case, I suggest leaving it on because
Okay.
maybe that's the next thing.
Gotcha.
I'm curious, they are definitely charging the TOT to their customers.
Yes.
Yes.
And this, I don't want to, this is, well, I shouldn't say it, it's hearsay. But yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other agenda items to add? No? All right. Well then, on that point, we'll adjourn this meeting. See everybody in 2 weeks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'll be on the East Coast.
Oh, look at you. Seeing family?
I got a wedding to go to.
Congratulations.
Are you going to be here? For you. The foreign.